Season 1, Episode 7, The Narrow Escape at Chamboli Market. Moses Kaputula felt the weight of the world on his shoulders as he sat in his small stall at Chamboli Market. The once bustling marketplace was now a ghost town. The national economy was in shambles, and businesses were collapsing like dominoes. Moses had started with high hopes, selling clothes and shoes, but the sluggish business had forced him to diversify into the food trade. Even this was a struggle, with customers counting every kwacha before making a purchase. As Moses rearranged his modest stock of vegetables and grains one morning, a man approached him. The man was of average height, with sharp features and an urgent demeanor. He introduced himself as Chibwe and explained that he needed a lift to a farmhouse in the Kaputula area urgently. His eyes darted around as he spoke, but his tone was calm and persuasive. He offered Moses a substantial sum for the ride, which Moses could not afford to refuse. Moses hesitated briefly, weighing the risk, but the promise of extra cash was too tempting. He agreed, and they set off on his motorcycle. The journey to the farmhouse was rough and dusty, but Chibwe kept the conversation light, discussing the dire state of the economy and sharing snippets of his own struggles. Moses felt a kinship with him, a fellow struggler in tough times. Upon arriving at the Kaputula farm, Chibwe directed Moses to a modest house surrounded by 5 trucks loaded with maize. It was an impressive sight, and Moses' curiosity was piqued. Chibwe explained that he needed to pay the owner of the maize, but was short by $100,000. He was desperate and explained that a white man in the town center was willing to pay a substantial sum for the maize at 17 hours. If I can get the maize to the buyer, I would make a significant profit and could easily repay you double the amount you loaned me. Moses' mind raced. The offer seemed too good to be true, but the situation felt genuine. He considered his options. He had some savings at home, enough to cover the $100,000, but it was all he had. Chibwe's pleading eyes and the prospect of doubling his money pushed him towards taking the risk. He decided to help Chibwe, but a nagging doubt lingered in his mind. Moses asked Chibwe to wait and rode his motorcycle to his home quickly. He gathered his savings, heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. As he returned to the house, he couldn't shake off a growing sense of unease. He decided to probe further before handing over the money. "Chibwe," Moses began cautiously, "how did you end up in this situation? You seem to have planned everything well except for this shortfall." Chibwe sighed and recounted a tale of bad luck and misfortune. His convincing story quelled Moses' doubts temporarily. But as he reached into his pocket to hand over the money, he remembered a lesson his grandmother had taught him. Trust, but verify. "Before I give you the money," Moses said, "I need to see some proof. Can we meet the owner of the maize? I'd like to understand the deal better." Chibwe's face briefly flashed with annoyance before he composed himself. "Of course," he said smoothly. "Let's go inside and talk to him." Inside the house, they met an older man who confirmed Chibwe's story, but something about the interaction felt off to Moses. The man seemed rehearsed, and there were too many glances exchanged between him and Chibwe. Moses' suspicion grew. "Can I see the maize certificates and the agreement with the buyer?" Moses asked. Chibwe hesitated, but then pulled out some documents. Moses took them and scrutinized them closely. They looked official, but something didn't add up. He had a friend who worked in a nearby office that dealt with agricultural trades. Deciding to verify the documents, he excused himself, saying he needed to make a quick call to his family. Moses rode his motorcycle to his friend's office and showed him the papers. His friend examined them and immediately identified them as forgeries. The signatures were mismatched, and the official seals were incorrect. Moses' heart sank. He realized he had almost fallen into a well-crafted trap. Returning to the house, Moses confronted Chibwe and the older man. "These documents are fake," he said, his voice firm. "I've just had them checked. You're trying to swindle me." Chibwe's face turned pale, and he stammered, trying to come up with an explanation. But Moses was done listening. He turned and walked out, ignoring Chibwe's desperate pleas and threats. His heart was pounding, but he felt a sense of relief wash over him. Back at his stall, Moses reflected on how close he had come to losing everything. The encounter had been a harsh reminder of the lengths people would go to in desperate times. He vowed to be more cautious and trust his instincts in the future. The next day, as Moses was setting up his stall, a police officer approached him. "We've been looking for a man named Chibwe," the officer said. "He's wanted for multiple fraud cases." Moses felt a chill run down his spine. "I met him yesterday," he replied. "He tried to con me too." The officer took his statement and thanked him for his cooperation. As the officer walked away, Moses realized how lucky he had been. The experience had taught him a valuable lesson about vigilance and the importance of verifying before trusting. Moses continued to work hard at his stall, more determined than ever to succeed. He knew the road ahead would be tough, but he also knew he had the wisdom and resilience to navigate it. The encounter with Chibwe had been a narrow escape, but it had also strengthened his resolve to survive and thrive in these challenging times.